It's the Drew Rice Show with me, Marky, Billson, asking the question, sponsored by Neighborhood Ford. The Unicoi County Blue Devils prepare to play the Sullivan East Patriots. It's a game that last year they lost in the closing seconds, and to be brutally honest with you, that was the difference between a winning record and a 500 regular season record, ultimately 5-6 when throwing in the playoff loss to Austin East. Drew Rice, I want to do this like the NFL. I know that you went with the backup punter Noah White yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week, due to a foot injury to Shane Armstrong. What's the injury situation with the Unicoi County Blue Devils?
Well, Shane, he's practiced 2 days this week, so we're continuing to kind of see what he's able to do. We think he's probably going to be ready. He's probably not going to be ready to play a whole lot of snaps, but I do think he's going to play tomorrow night, but it'll probably be a game time decision. But he probably won't punt just because that is the leg that's bothering him. So I thought Noah did a good job last week of kind of filling in there when we needed him. So, but other than Shane, we've got Lane Garland's out right now, probably just for this week. And other than that, as far as guys that play a whole lot, I guess that's about it for this week. So we're relatively healthy. So we're gonna continue to try to keep it that way. But that's always that's part of the game. So
who replaces Garland?
We've actually kind of rolled a couple guys through there. He played. He's our backup middle linebacker. But last week he also played that fullback spot in that power set we were running. So we've got a couple of different kids. Danny Lowry, who starts on the defensive line, is going to play there some, and Ty Wilson, who's a transfer from Crockett that showed up a couple weeks ago. So he's continuing to learn what we're doing, and they're both seniors and big, strong kids. So we feel like both of those guys can fill in there and do a good job.
One of the linebackers I thought that really emerged against South Green was Lamar Mitchell. He seemed to come on and made some big stops, especially when the game was being turned around from a 12-0 deficit to an eventual 10-point win. What can you tell us about Mitchell? He's a junior linebacker, but seems to be coming on. Is he on his way to cracking the starting lineup?
Yeah, he's a guy that he's a young kid, and of course he's a junior now. But the last 2 years we've said once he kind of grows into his body that he's going to be a good player for us. And he's still small to be a defensive end, but he's he just kind of has a nose for the football, and he does what he's coached to do, and he's very, very quick, and he plays behind his pads well, and he's just one of those kids that he's just got that it factor, whatever it is. But no, he's had a great summer, and I thought he played very, very well Friday night against a good football team.
They're talking about that 12-0 deficit, but it seemed like there were defensive adjustments. I mean, we spoke of Mitchell being emerging, but yes, the first couple of drives, blowing off the ball, big open holes for South Green, and I said, oh, here we go, the SOBs, same old Blue Devils, right? And then all of a sudden there was an adjustment, and in the second half, a real change of defensive philosophy and intensity. What was the change? How did you go from being blown off the ball to pretty much dominating in the second half?
Well, the first game is always interesting because you're lucky to get a scrimmage film, if that, so there's no real game film out there to look at formations and things like that. And they were just lining up in a formation that we hadn't prepared for. They didn't run it any last year, which they've got a new coach, so that makes sense. But we just weren't gap sound. That wasn't really our kids' fault. And we just, like I said, there's 9 million formations you can possibly be in, so that's one of the struggles of playing early in the year. But yeah, we caught it, and our coaches in the box did a good job of figuring out what they were lining up in and where they were hurting us at, and we made some adjustments, and I felt like that kind of took care of it.
Is that how do you select the change in the gap? I mean, I hear conversation of changing from one gap to two gap, things like that. But what specifically was the big primary change that allowed allowed you to dominate?
Well, they were just in an unbalanced set, where they've got 4 guys on one side of the line and 2 guys on the other. So basically we just, at that point, just slid our entire defensive line down and kind of shifted our entire defense over a man, and that kind of took care of it. But the other thing that was putting us in a bind defensively, Tristan Biddy, number 81 for them, is just such a talent, So we had said we're not going to let him beat us. I think he had 2 catches for 22 yards. That was partially because, he was getting double covered a lot of the night. So we were giving him so much attention that, we feel like it was kind of making us vulnerable elsewhere. But if you'd have told me going into that game that he's going to have 2 catches for 22 yards, I'd definitely taken it. So.
Well, we noticed the same thing about taking out Biddy, and the man did run a 4.5 40. Let's look ahead to Sullivan East after this word from Neighborhood Ford. Back with the Drew Rice Coaches Show. I'm Marky Billson, sponsored by Neighborhood Ford. Before we get to the Patriots, Cody Lewis, Player of the Week, Johnson City Press, more than 200 total yards, 4 touchdowns, something I like to call a Bundy trick for all the Married with Children fans out there. He had been somewhat, I thought, maybe after all the talk of Thompson, maybe after all the talk of Strother, maybe something of a forgotten man, but this junior running back here, Cody Lewis, is he going to be now the focal point of the offense going forward?
Well, that's a great question, and obviously Brett got a whole lot of attention Friday night, and has got a whole lot of attention this offseason, and so was Brock, and rightfully so. But we knew all along, and we still know how good or even great Cody can be. He's very, very gifted, and he's a kid that devotes himself in the weight room, and his older brother Dylan was a great player for us, and so it was no surprise to us. But I agree. I do think that the attention that Brett and Brock have gotten, and like I said, rightfully so. But Cody, among the staff, that was no surprise because he's certainly capable of that. And you said he had over 200 yards, and that was with a 75-yard touchdown run called back. So, but he's a great talent, and he's a great kid, and he's here every time the doors are open, and I do think he's going to get a lot more attention moving forward. So we hope that's going to allow us to get the ball in Brett's hands more, and some of the other weapons we've got. But no, he had a great night.
The 48-yard touchdown reception on a screen pass turned the game around. Now, looking ahead to Sullivan East, they come off a 14-0 loss to Johnson County. It was intriguing because, of course, you think Johnson County the last few years, Nate Arnold, their fine quarterback, now playing at Cumberland's, and now they seem to change to a grind-it-out, running-the-ball style, did Johnson County. I'm curious, when you looked at the film, what did you see changes from last year, both Sullivan East and Johnson County, who figures to challenge you for the 1-3A title?
Sure. Well, we try not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but, you're sitting there watching East play Johnson County. It's kind of hard not to get, naturally, Johnson County being our rival and everything else, watching them a lot. But, their defense is still really, really good. But, from an East perspective, they're huge up front. They've got some really big kids, and they do a good job of, what they do, running that wing T offense. And, last 3 or 4 years, they've had a lot of success doing it. So East, to me, looks very similar to last year's team that beat us. So, we're taking that as a challenge. And but up front, they're very, very impressive. And, we're just going to have to play assignment football and, try to use our speed to counter their strength, or their size, I should say. So we'll see.
Well, they do come off a 14-0 loss, but you guys did give up 5 touchdowns. One of them, yes, on a kickoff return, but hey, there was a question on coverage there. That you can't overlook that. On the other hand, you are looking at at Sullivan here. A Sullivan East team that probably hasn't faced a passing game like yours. So what do you think the key to victory is against the Patriots?
I think we've got to control the line of scrimmage. Like I said, if we can create pressure with our defensive line, and as big as they are, and offensively, if we can, gap protect and block well enough to get the ball in our guys' hands and get them running sideline to sideline, and we're going to try to make them defend the entire field. But I think it's going to be a great challenge for us. They're a 4A football team, and I think it's been I guess it's been 5 years since we beat them. So we definitely think it's certainly a challenge, and we feel like we're up to it.
Coming off a 4-6 season last year are the Patriots. Who do you think is the player that you've got to stop for Sullivan East?
Their quarterback is they don't run him a ton, but he's certainly capable. And he plays defense for him too. But watching him on film, he's an athletic kid, and you can tell he's got some gifts. And of course he's playing behind a huge offensive line, and that always helps. But we got to keep him round up, and I think if we can get pressure on him and maybe rush some throws and things like that, that'll play in our favor.
Both these two teams in 4A and 3A for Unicoi County, respectively, were in the others receiving votes in the Tennessee high school football polls for the top 10. A little surprised after a 14-0 loss for Sullivan East, and maybe even after a 10-point victory off of a 2A team for Unicoi County. But I'll ask, if you defeat the Patriots this week, do you think you'll be in the top 10?
We'll see. All that stuff, it is what it is. We went on that good run last year, winning 5 out of 6, and I think we made it up to like 8 or something on that, and then we dropped the last 2 games of the year. So it is what it is. But we just going to have to worry about us, and take these things each week. One challenge at a time, and next week we'll start region play. So our ultimate goal is to win a region championship. Polls and things like that, they're great, but our goal is to win a region championship. So for us to do that, we've got to take it 1 week at a time, and that's kind of going to be our focus.
It is what it is. He's quoting Mike Tomlin, obviously. He's Drew Rice. I'm Marky Billson. This has been the Drew Rice Coaches Show, brought to you by Neighborhood Ford.